UU Church in Clear Lake, and she's a candidate for the UU ministry, attending the Life School of Theology in Denver. She's a trained chaplain and writer. Her novel, The Mountains Under Her Feet, was published this year. Please welcome Catherine.
I always love to hear your joys and concerns that you share with each other. It's just so uplifting to me to hear how you show up for each other. So let's begin by doing the responsive reading found in your hymnal, number 468. It's called We Need One Another. So if you'll read the italicized portion. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted.
We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid.
We need one another when we're in despair and temptation and need to be recalled to our best selves again.
We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone.
We need one another in the hour of success when we look for someone to share our triumphs.
We need one another in the hour of defeat, when with encouragement we might endure and stand again.
We need one another when we come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us. Yes. Well, as Mary told you, the theme for this month is liberating love. And so I thought I would start by asking you to think about what things you love unconditionally, unreservedly, without really trying to put any kind of need on it. It's not something you have to do. It's just coming straight from your soul. But I have a list written by writer Courtney Martin of the things that she loves. So be thinking about your own list as I read. I love finishing a book. I love my neighbor's comedic timing. I love watching her make my other neighbors laugh. I love when 2-year-olds say things I don't fully understand, but get the rhythm and the tone of adult communication perfectly. I love sinking a three-pointer, and more power to her if she can do that. I love walking beside honest, smart women. I love the first swig from my bottle of wine. I love the smells of lilac, eucalyptus, coffee, and basil. I love finishing leftovers where nothing is wasted. I love when I feel like there is so little time left. It's all that matters. I love when I feel like there is so much time left and none of it matters. I love how insignificant redwood trees make me feel. I love my mother's cowgirl boots and her oxtail soup. I love how boundaried cats are. I love freckles and gap-toothed smiles. I love old people's hands, especially if their knuckles are bulbous like my grandmother's were. I love making eye contact with a very pregnant woman and saying, "Girl, you got this." I love the first and last scene in a movie and sitting in the dark watching. I love noticing something with a total stranger. I love giving toasts. I love treating money like energy rather than an object. I love the river and how it obliterates time. We might say that about the ocean here where we are. I love being of use. I love one pair of earrings. I love having friends outside of my generation. I love the feeling of a well-organized drawer. I love a hot bagel, iced coffee, and the newspaper. I love when people surprise you by changing. I love when I surprise myself by changing. I love giving up sometimes the lightness of that. I love fireplaces. I love cemeteries. I love nursing babies. I love nurses and teachers. I love collage and street photography. I love when my husband says, "For real?" And I love when my dad says, "Is that right?" I love many people who have died and some who are yet to be born. I love all of that. So as I begin the sermon, which is called Love is the Default of the Universe, I have another short reading from the Tao Te Ching, and it says, "All things return to the beginning. Returning to the beginning, there's stillness. In stillness, love and purpose return. This is what's real. Knowing the reality, there's clarity. Not knowing the real, foolish action brings disaster. From knowing the real comes spaciousness. From spaciousness comes sovereignty. From sovereignty comes what is natural. And from what's natural comes the way. And from the way comes what is lasting, persisting, and beyond ourselves." So I feel like giving this sermon maybe is a little bit early. Maybe it should be next month during Valentine's month. But it's not really a bad way to start off the new year, to be thinking about these things. You just heard someone's list of their favorite things that they love. So did you think about it while you were hearing it? So if you will now, just call out the names of people or activities or things that have enriched your life and that raise your spirits in no uncertain terms.
Driving around the city wall. I love it. I'm fascinated by the atmosphere.
The weather. Yeah, okay. Oh, okay.
I love sailing under a full moon.
Sailing under a full moon. Yeah.
Poppy breath.
Poppy breath. Okay.
I love doing things for the first time.
Ooh, doing things for the first time.
Sleeping late at the cold.
Ooh, yes.
Sitting in the hot tub.
Okay, fun. Hot chocolate. Okay, okay.
Humans.
I love humans.
New life in the family.
I love a new life in the family. I love going to lunch with friends after church.
I love watching the little piping plovers scurry up the yellow beach.
I love watching the piping plovers scurry up and down the beach. That was very poetic. That's a beautiful way to phrase it. I love when I can find a pair of shoes that fit because I have odd-sized feet. Oh, I love my wife. I love talking to my daughters. What wonderful responses. Just so unconditional, which is what love really ought to be. So fun, so heartwarming. Well, some of you have heard of Marianne Williamson, the kind of new age spiritual guru. She's from right here in the Houston area. She says, to echo the Tao, that love is what we're born with. Fear and alienation are things that we learn. And the spiritual journey in the unlearning of fear and prejudice brings back the love that just naturally exists in our hearts, that we're born with. So I want to talk about the practice of recovering or of staying in that place of original love, because that place pre-exists. It pre-existed us, and it's unlocked and it's open and it requires no action and no effort. We only have to remember that it's there for us. We just have to receive it, to celebrate it. We don't have to make a big plan to get a hold of it. We don't have to have a talk with ourselves or strategize about how we're going to offer love more to the world. It just really is there, this lovingness. Most of us know what the term default means. On our computers, the default is whatever the standard programming is. If you don't put in your own changes, your own preferences. Well, for me, that default is very good news, because technology is not my forte. So default means that the machine is going to work for me. Everything is going to be all right because it has it all figured out. It's always good, I think, to have the ability to change things if we want, to have choices, but sometimes the most clarity and the most function comes with just the simplest option. And so I trust the default on my laptop, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm glad that it's there. But in the rest of my life, I seem to do everything in my power to ignore that default, the universal default, which is love. And I just seem to have my own damn idea about how things ought to be done, how I want things to go. Well, some of you may know that I'm single. I got divorced about 5 years ago. And in the leaving of my marriage, I was left wondering what had gone wrong and what red flags I had missed. And so, like any of you who have been through similar losses, I wondered whether I was lovable. I wondered whether I could trust my heart to a new person. My age and signing up for these dating apps, was I going to be ignored or just treated as a curiosity? So I wondered if I could find a new person to love, because I really did want to be partnered. I had met the man I eventually married when I was a freshman in college, but things had changed a lot since then, and my experience was pretty limited. So first of all, I was amazed that anyone at all wanted to go out with me. And I didn't have a lot of discernment. I couldn't tell a scammer who lived on the other side of the world from a player, as they say, a playa, from a person who really wanted to get to know me seriously. So I was pretty clueless. But at first, I was really determined. I was going to get to know people. I was going to work at it. I was going to look good. I was going to succeed. And so naturally, I set myself up for some disappointment, even a heartbreak or two a couple of times, because I was projecting onto others what I so desperately wanted for myself and hoped for. Why don't you want to go out with me? What's the matter with me? Or what's the matter with you, right? What's the matter with people that they are shallow or deceptive or don't know how to relate? Is love even possible? These are all the things that were going through my mind. Does anybody want authentic and lasting connection? So I'm sure you can see what my problem was. I just really needed to get out of my own way and just be and let things be. Stop overthinking things, stop running after love as if it was something that I could get if I tried hard enough and did the right things and set up all my criteria like I was shopping for a new car. But of course, romantic love is just one type of love and one way to experience happiness, peace, and connection. We all have to feel complete. We have to feel that just as we are good. We will rest in a spaciousness that will permit joy and relationship to just flow in. So you don't really have to do anything to experience that boundless love, that liberating love. But this might be a good point to ask, how do we really know that love is the default of the universe? There certainly is a lot of evidence to the contrary in the world today. We can notice the brokenness everywhere we turn, in the war that's in Palestine and in the Ukraine, in national politics, in our history, even in just the workings of our local communities sometimes, that aggressiveness, that frustration. But do these things prove that love has to compete for space, or does it really show just that we have managed to find ways to push love out of the way and not allow it to come in? These things do prove to me that humankind is really good at putting obstacles in its own path, because love doesn't fight, it doesn't argue, it doesn't assert, it just simply is, and it will show itself to the extent that we just be sure that there is no obstruction, to the extent that we can simply breathe and allow and sit quietly and receive it. Well, another way to check the truth of love being the default of the universe is to sort of look at some of the traditions of the world, traditions that have been around for centuries. Buddhist thought, for instance, tells us that we have to look within before we can best love others. We have to, first of all, love ourselves, practice that self-acceptance. And so getting back to what is essential, starting with your own strong inner core, there's a Japanese novel in which the hero and swordsman Miyamoto Musashi gazes at Mount Fuji, and he tells his student, rather than worrying about your future, perhaps I should become this or perhaps I should become that, find yourself, first of all, as solid and unmoving as Mount Fuji, and then you'll be ready to relate to the world. Well, the Tao Te Ching, which I read from, also says that we should keep our hearts as open as the sky, that we should be patient while the mud settles, and the water will become clear on its own, because if you try to do too much, stirring the water, it only becomes muddier. You have to leave it alone. Christian scripture says that perfect love casts out fear, contrary to what we hear a lot of times about judgment and punishment and retribution in the Christian tradition. Love really has no sense of punishment. The scriptures also say that there is nothing that can separate us from the love of God, because as far as God is concerned, there was never any separation. We are the ones who put that there. In most Native American traditions, love has to do with relationship to creation itself. There's a belief that we are connected to everyone and everything in nature, not by appreciating it from afar, but actually because we are intrinsically bound to it. We can no more escape from this pervasive oneness than we can escape from ourselves. And of course, if you know our principles, that is one of our core views, the interconnected web of all existence. It's who we are. So trying to find it, trying to make something better, just darkens the process. So again and again we hear that love simply is just give it the room. You don't have to do anything. So as Unitarian Universalists, we want love in all the aspects of our lives, toward ourselves, in our relationships, in our communities. We practice social justice in society. We see so much imperfection and so much need for change that sometimes our natural impulse is to figure out what we're going to do. We're going to take action here, and we're going to take action there, and we're going to fix things. But you don't have to fix things. Just let them be. We have to trust in that default, in that original set point where love resides all along. So how do we do that? How do we clear the field? How do we liberate ourselves and find these open spaces? Not judging, not longing for something that's not there, not having an expectation of another person, or worrying about when is it going to get better? When are things going to happen the way we think they should? So again, the Hebrew Psalms instruct to be still. Know that I am God, the words say. Know that liberating love starts from within, with noticing that we are imposing, wanting, requiring, instead of simply accepting what is in others or in ourselves. Liberating love means always choosing to welcome things as good and whole, just exactly the way that they are. We can think of the slave owner, the author of the ship owner, the author of the song Amazing Grace. He wrote, I was blind, but now I see. His change of heart about his human cargo brought him into a humble, liberating love, which took him from the wretch that he was. He took away his preconceived and taught ideas and saw other human beings just simply in a spirit of open love. So, when we perpetuate negative energy or righteously insist on a certain point of view, we crowd out that background of love which wants to flow in. So that's why we're so often advised to meditate, to quiet our minds, to focus on our breath. I'm one of those people, I don't know about you, but I sometimes have trouble with meditation because I seem to just always have, a chatter going in my head. There always seems to be something else I should be doing. I'm so terrible at savasana when I do my yoga. But doing nothing, releasing the past and the present, I'm learning, is doing something. It's doing something. It provides that space for love to enter in. The 14th century Persian poet Hafiz gives a good example of how we can offer everything to the world by simply being ourselves and doing things which are easy and intrinsic to our nature. As you called out all of these things that you love, those are things that just flow out of you. You're not working for those things. They just are there. So Hafiz gives the example. He says, even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me. You owe me. Look what I'm doing for you." Look what happens with a love like that. In the Christian New Testament, we locate Jesus' parable in which he reminds his listeners that they should consider the lilies of the field, existing as they do just in this natural surrounding. And of course, they don't think, but just rest and exist totally in the knowledge that they're complete, they're cared for, they have their role in the scheme of things, and they're happy with themselves, and they don't need to change and don't need to require or request anything. And the other thing that we can notice about lilies is they don't have any fear of the future. Their essence is with the universe. Things are unfolding as they should. Well, there's a writer named Charles Eisenstein, and he wrote a book called The Most Beautiful World That the Heart Knows Is Possible. And he plays with this idea of interbeing, with the knowledge that we are intimately connected to divinity and to everything, each person, place, and bit of matter in the universe. And that when we accept that, we can live at peace with whatever's happening and actually find love flowing in, even when negative things are going on. And if we resist that, it's really just our egos getting in the way, establishing that separation, that wall. And so when we are separate, we keep trying to bring things back around, trying to restore a sense of wholeness, a sense of completion. Well, he was a former journalist, and he worked a lot in the corporate world, and he would go and do these workshops helping people to be more productive and to get along better with their coworkers and have better staff, community relations. And he told people all the time, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. And that is just such a revelation to people. He says the change that we seek is already happening just by being who you naturally are. And then he laughs because he knows that this is not what folks paid him to come and tell them. So likewise, as you use, we have to be careful that as we mindfully hold that loving, most beautiful world that we think is possible in our sights, that we don't sabotage it by deciding on making aggressive plans, throwing our shoulder to the wheel, putting in X amount of hours of sweat equity. Don't get me wrong, I'm not calling for us to sit around the campfire and sing Kumbaya. I do want us to keep working for justice. We need to get out the vote and campaign for liberal candidates and transgender equity, whatever your cause may be. But it goes back to those lists of things that are beloved, that litany of places, things that come so naturally that it's barely noticed because it's so much a part of who you are. So don't try to motivate yourself, guilt yourself into being good. Actions taken from that place will be less powerful than what arises just unbidden. So don't be afraid, don't be stressed, just be curious and joyful and excited for the journey, for your journey as a congregation and as individuals in the coming year. Listen into the silence, accept what is, and notice what you enjoy and what you're really very good at. Clarify your values about what excites you. And don't worry about doing exactly the right thing or about making mistakes. If the task is large, don't worry about how you're going to get where you're going. And don't engage with each other in a spirit of tension. Just choose to follow the path of least resistance, which is the path of love. And stop and notice your body, too, about how you feel at ease. Sometimes all we have to do is just notice whether our heart is beating steadily, where the sun is, whether there is a breeze on the ocean. Let yourself be joyous and let it be easy. That feeling of love within yourself and in the moment will carry you into the work that needs to be done. So trust that by being who you are, you'll find your way step by step as individuals in connection and in the larger community. And now that I've said all that, I need to go home and take another look at my dating profile. Well, thank you for your presence here today. Our prayer this morning is a collective one. It's a physical prayer. It's very simple. I use it a lot in an intergenerational space because it has gestures. And so I'm going to go through it once, and we will change the word love to peace and joy, and then we will go back to love again. So it goes like this. And I told Margaret I can't sing, but it's pretty simple. I send my love up to the mountain. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heaven, and it returns to me. So see if you can do that with me. And stand if you're able, or if you prefer to do it seated, that's fine too. I send my love up to the mountain. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heaven, and it returns to me. Joy. I send my joy up to the mountain. I send my joy over the sea. I send my joy into the heavens, and it returns to me. Peace. I send my peace up to the mountain. I send my peace over the sea. I send my peace into the heaven, and it returns to me. One more time, love. I send my love up to the mountain. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heaven, and it returns to me.